now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled Rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome and welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And this is Ben.
on Spoiled Rotten. And today we're gonna rank the episodes of season 3 of What If. So maybe you haven't heard us do that before, but basically we just go through the episodes, we spoil them, and then we say which ones were our least favorite to favorite. I will say this right now. I didn't like this season. So
Yeah.
if you hear what my number one is, just know that's like, well, it can only go so low. There's like, this is not like a ringing endorsement of any episode, if I'm being honest.
Sure. I mean, in all fairness, I thought this season was lackluster. And I don't know if that was because the quality of the season is bad, which I know it is, compared to the fact that before even the season was released, they were like, "Yeah, this is the final one," and I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's a bummer to hear."
To me, it was more like every episode just felt like so dour. Every episode, like, even in ones that I remembered were fun, I'm like, oh yeah, like there's this part where everything seems so hopeless, and like there's always like this sad underpinning, coupled with, as you said, people saying this is the last season, which just feels like forced. I don't even really know why this would be. I don't know why this would have to be the last season. I didn't feel like there was a strong narrative. There was a narrative, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't a strong one. So it's not like people are like, oh, they're not paying this off. It's just like you have constantly the potential to win people back because you don't have to follow anything really.
Yes, and I don't think they did that. I don't think they did.
No.
I think there's things that I would have been a little bit more impressed with if they like really reached into season 1 and 2 and like pulled together towards the end. But everything seems like, yeah, you remember these people, and then we're all of a sudden going to insert Storm and all this kind of stuff, and this Birdie character, and then that's the wrap up. It's not like,
well, I mean,
you know,
to be fair to the show, each season they do create a character like Captain Carter in the first season. Second season was, is it Lahori? I don't know. I didn't need to look up her name. The character that we loved from the first season, played by Devery Jacobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel bad. I forgot her name before too. But yeah, that, and then this season is Birdie that they created. So that tracked. I was just more like, why Kahori, sorry, that's her name. Kahori, a character I like that feels like they didn't really do anything with her this season, but
no, they really
she's
didn't.
there at least. She came
back. It's just like, cool, they've got to team up, and it's just like, and they did stuff outside of here that you'll never get to see. Yeah,
like it just felt like the last 2 episodes mean something to the, as I said, that very loose narrative they have going on, and then nothing else was tied to it. So when, like, whatever, we'll get to it. I just think it just felt pretty dour and not as exciting as it could have been. Not even just for the last season, just the idea that they could do anything they want. So that seems like it is fertile ground to be exciting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, episode 1. What if the Hulk fought the Mech Avengers? It feels like they were just like, it's Godzilla. I mean, I understand that's obviously the thing, but even visually, they're like, nah, it's just Godzilla. Don't worry about it.
100%.
We're not. No, there is no metaphor here. It's just there's no illusion. There's nothing. It is Godzilla.
Yeah, I thought this episode was a lot of fun. It was a great way to start off the whole season, because I think like this is what I like about What If is like the cross pollination of Marvel with other like really, really grandiose franchises like Godzilla, as well as like Power Rangers,
like the Gundam like stuff that they're doing. Yes, Power. Like I can't remember the name for it, but that style,
Voltron style stuff, where you got the big mecha Zoids and all that kind of stuff. It was really, really
and
fun.
There's a nice assortment of characters. It does do the
Yes.
thing that I was a bit bummed out about this season. Not that it didn't happen in other seasons. I'm not trying to say it's different this season, but
Mhm.
it felt like we lost ground even more. Like Benedict Wong didn't come back, not for this episode, but in future
Mhm.
episodes, Benedict Wong didn't come back to voice Wong. Like they used whatever his Jeff Goldblum, but it's not Jeff Goldblum. It's like a TikToker that sounds like Jeff Goldblum, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, his name's Matthew Friend. I shouldn't downplay him like that, but it was just kind of like, oh, like I know this guy. That's
Mhm.
what really they went with that. So it was just kind of like, oh, all right, well, whatever. And in this case, they didn't bring back Lupita Nyong'o to the point where I'm like, who is this supposed to be? It is Nakia, but I was just like, well, like who is this Wakandan that's just here randomly? Everyone else was cool though, like that they got back actual. Everyone else was actually the voice of that character, which was cool.
I really liked it a lot. Yeah, it's fun because it was very it had this like vibe to it that's like a little bit mismatched in the sense where it's like, okay, Sam Wilson is definitely a little bit too serious through the whole thing. He's being Sam Wilson, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like I totally
But
get
like
that.
Moon Knight and Bucky have funny, quippy moments and stuff.
Exactly. It's
Yeah,
just like I don't buy this as a team really. It's
it's
but
not a
it
team, but I was like, hey,
yeah.
look, a lot of bang for your buck that you got all these characters, whether or not they're voiced by the original people or not, like
Yep.
together, and that's the fun of What If for me as well.
Yeah. Yeah. This was really, really successful. I like the idea of how like, okay, yeah, you get Mega Hulk and it's got this big kaiju fight at the end. Like it's a lot of fun. It
Mm-hmm.
really is a lot of fun. And yeah, it was a great start to this season for sure.
Yeah, because I think I was watching them pretty much, other than Christmas and what's it called, Boxing Day. I was watching
Sure.
them on the day of, and I
Right.
just kept seeing people be like, "This season sucks." Like after season one, I was like, "Oh, that's a quick thing."
It is a
I
quick
had fun with
turnaround.
this episode, like you.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if it's because like, and I think we did talk about this when we reviewed season one. It's just like when season one hit, it we were told that it's like, yeah, this is what if, and then clearly it had a connecting underlying story that I was trying to tell, and we thought it was just gonna be one-off throw-off stories where it's like none of this matters. It's just fun to look at,
Hmm.
but it actually did matter, and I'm like, oh crap, we had to pay a little bit more attention to this
Yeah, I
than
don't
we
think this
originally
episode
thought.
mattered. But to
It
not
did
to
not.
not to disprove what you're saying. I'm saying
Right.
in addition to what you're saying, yeah,
Yes.
this episode, from what I can remember, is just kind of like this was just fun.
Yes. And that's what I
Is
liked about this
yeah.
episode. It was just fun. And I'm like, great. If this is the final season, I'm glad we can still do that. And it's because the connecting stuff really, really happened toward the end or mid-season,
Yeah, like
but
I know that the Watcher stuff
mhm.
before the last two episodes, you can see what is it, like the emissary or something? I can't remember. Jason
Yeah,
Isaacs, like the Jason Isaacs character, is
sure.
kind of like, hey, what the fuck's going on here? But other than that, the actual stories being told didn't really connect until episode 7.
Hmm.
Um,
There's like the one I'm gonna say it, Easter egg that got dropped from the Howard the Duck episode. But like that's just like, oh yeah, we're told later she's gonna be important later on. And
yeah,
I'm like, they didn't. Well, we'll get to that, but
we
it
will.
is fun. But episode one, huge success. Episode two was what if Agatha went to Hollywood?
Hmm.
This
Hey,
was
they brought
also
back.
very fun.
They finally committed to bringing back Kingo.
Yep.
Like he's. It's always like you see in a movie that came out like, oh yeah, they were gonna have Kingo in this, but then they didn't, and I'm like, well, he finally showed up again. That's great.
Yep.
I'm glad he's back. Obviously, this is an Agatha heavy episode.
Mhm.
Um, sure, yeah, it is fun to see them play off each other.
Yep.
These kind of showboats that have to work together or maybe not work together. I'm
Mhm.
not trying to be coy. I don't actually remember what happens other than they make a deal and Agatha gets a lot of powers. She
Yep.
she she really levels up.
She levels up to a big degree. Her basic plan is to get the as powerful as possible as Agatha all along is
Hmm.
it's consistent with that character. But this one she gets a Celestial's power, which is insane. It's
She gets the
absolutely
Celestial's
insane.
power, and Howard Stark He's like, yeah, I already knew you were a witch. It is. I'm glad they put that
Yeah.
in there because like the whole time they're like, oh,
Yes.
we got to do this so that Howard doesn't catch on. And I'm like, how the fuck would he not catch on to this? And I'm so glad that he's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't care. I understand. It's just this is way cheaper than
Yeah.
doing a movie because I was like, there's no way he would be like, oh, I guess this all just happens on camera, no
Yeah.
problem. I'm so happy he was like, yeah, no, I get it. Just I don't want to spend money, so this is great. You keep
Yeah.
doing what you're doing.
It's really, really good to that degree, and he just didn't care. And I liked this version of Howard, where it's like I'm all about making the story, baby, and like
Hmm.
how like close to like even the idea of like the Kingo fight and Agatha fight being like actually real. He's like, no, keep it
Yeah,
rolling, and I'm like, this is
like, I
great.
think it's like Jarvis who's like, "Holy shit!" And he's like, "Yeah, don't worry about it. Like, this is perfect. Get it on
Yeah,
camera."
it's like, I don't care how much they destroy, we'll make it all back.
Yeah,
And I'm like, that's hilarious to me. It's really, really good. It's fun. And yeah, comes back. That's great.
yeah, I'm happy. All right, number 3. What if the Red Guardian stopped the Winter Soldier? Now, this started out good for me. I
Yes.
was kind of like, I don't really care what's happening anymore. But just the first imagery of showing the scene from Civil War, like,
Yes.
I mean, from 1991, like just showing the footage of the Starks dying and then having Red Guardian show up. But I think I don't want. I feel like I come off kind of like a hipster when I say this. I'm just not into this current age of David Harbour. If I'm being honest,
Okay.
there's just something about him where he seems too omnipresent, and
Hmm.
the Red Guardian of all the things I'm seeing him in, because he's in Creature Commandos as well. Of all the things I'm seeing him in right now, this one feels the most forced. It
Yes.
doesn't feel. I liked him as I shouldn't say I liked him. I do like him as an actor. I think what he's doing, and I've felt this way since Black Widow.
Uh-huh.
This character is just too comical and doesn't feel properly weighted,
Uh-huh.
especially in What If. In Black Widow, it's easier because you have the Florence Pugh, Scarlett Johansson, and to
Yes.
a certain extent Rachel Weisz, grounding him in this true drama of the family.
Hmm.
And he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, which is being the comic relief. I get
Yep.
that. But in this, where it's like already a cartoon, his cartoonish stuff just feels like too Saturday morning
Yes.
up against Bucky.
Hmm.
Um, who can be like, as we said, like in the first episode, and I know David Harbour's in the first episode as well, but I try to tune that out. This one is like the Red Guardian episode, and it's just like,
Yes.
yeah, it's just a bit much for me. Luckily, there's
I
Goliath in it too. He's
yeah.
interesting.
I do agree with that take. I feel like the issue. I like Red Guardian. I like the childishness that he brings to these other properties, like Black Widow, like you mentioned, and the first episode. However, because it's in such small doses, and he's not the only one doing that,
Hmm.
it really, really works up. But in this episode in particular, where you have 1991, I'm going to say early 90s Winter Soldier, where he's like no fun at all.
He
It's
gets
just
there
like
by the end. Like Red
he
Guardian rubs
does.
off on him. Yes.
A little bit,
Yeah.
yes, but the entire time it's just like Red Guardian having to carry the whole fun aspect of this episode on his back, and that's why I'm like, I agree with you. It's a lot. It's too much to take in this episode because of Bucky's character being like, oh, okay, yeah, you're
Yeah,
gonna be like
it's
straight
what
and
I
narrow.
liked about him and Sam in the show and the
Yep.
movies is that there's more to it with them,
Hmm.
and like I'm hoping in Thunderbolts we get something better. Like I even like in the trailer that exchange where he's like, "Hey, but what kind of serum did you get?" Like that seems a bit better than what
Yes.
this is. And it really does come down to just like it feels way more forced than it needs to. It doesn't come as
Yeah.
naturally. Whereas I get the tension between Sam and Bucky, and that we've seen them go through things together. In addition to being
Hmm.
like, well, Steve's my friend, Steve's my friend. That just
Yeah.
having that mutual thing there's a lot more to cling on to there, and
Hmm.
I think they just work well together.
Hmm.
As people who would try to one up each other versus the Red Guardian kind of fanboying over him, and me being like,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like it doesn't. It's not the same dynamic as like Ms. Marvel, Captain Marvel. She's a kid.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Her enthusiasm makes a lot more sense.
I do like the idea of like some of the lines in the trailers that the Thunderbolts offers where he's like, "Oh, like Winter Soldier, he's so cool." And then like you immediately get the shot to Florence Pugh like cringing. And I'm like,
Hmm.
"Yeah, that's fun because everyone else gets to react appropriately to him versus like Bucky in this episode is just like
Yeah,
and
and
it's just
yeah,
like that's not great. It's
I
like
feel like Thunderbolts will work too because that's his daughter right there as well. So
yes.
there's going to be an element of me excusing his cartoonishness of like, well, I gotta look good in front of my daughter. Like I will
Yeah.
accept that this character who already feels that way would be like amped up in front of his daughter.
Yeah. And also like yeah, the idea of the relationship is it is his daughter. And the idea of and I'm not saying this is true for all dads, but the majority of dads I feel like have a past to be very embarrassing and cringy in front of their kids.
Hmm.
So I'm like, it works in that context. But because I can't imagine Red Guardian just being like to Ghost if Florence Pugh's character isn't there to be like, oh yeah, he's so cool. I'm like, no, no,
No.
you would expect him to pretend to be macho and buff and all that kind of stuff to put that front on and then everyone else being like ew but like him actually having that general vulnerability and sincerity of being oh he's so cool in front of his own daughter so I'm looking forward to seeing him there but this episode because he was 50% of the team it's too
Yeah.
much
It
of
just
what currently they're giving him to do with his character.
yeah because I think the other issue. This is the last time I'll reference something that isn't this episode.
Mhm.
Uh, Even when Bucky wasn't with Sam in Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV show, he was
Mhm.
still with people that forced him to like share something of himself.
Yeah.
If you put him with someone who's so in your face, you're giving him an excuse to clam up and not do
Yeah.
anything, and so it's
Mhm.
just not as fun for me.
Mhm.
Um, Also, like the what if of it all kind of just yes, obviously there's huge knock-on effects, but they don't spend much time on the actual him stopping the
Yeah.
assassination. It kind of just happens. You're like, oh yeah, okay. Then I guess this is what would happen. It didn't feel like we lived in that. Like it was just kind of like, yeah, I got to stop him,
Mhm.
and then you
Mhm.
did.
Yeah.
And you're like,
It
oh,
makes
okay.
it's a complete mismatch, especially because when you consider the fact he comes from Soviet Russia, and you're like, there's no way the Soviet Russians would have chosen this guy with this personality to do this. You know what I mean? And resemble and represent the Soviet Union with the idea of like um this jokester, so to speak, for what the image they're trying to put out globally is.
Hmm.
So it's just like it's a complete mismatch of everything. I get how he would be like that in Black Widow because he's trying to assimilate
Also,
to
he's further. I mean, when we see him again, it's further down the line.
yes,
Obviously, at the beginning, it's probably close enough to this time period.
yeah, yeah, and this is the issue with this episode is like in Captain Falcon and Winter Soldier, Bucky is for the first time experiencing character growth because ever since he got taken out of the Winter Soldier program and Steve saved him in Civil War, he's been fight after fight after fight after fight, except for when he was in Wakanda, being like, I gotta
And
fix
had
my
peace.
mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like, okay, when he had peace, he was resting up, doing all that kind of stuff. And then in Falcon Winter Soldier, he's like, yeah, you gotta try to be a part of civilization or society again.
Hmm.
Like that's gonna challenge you. You're actually being forced to do something different versus everything else was like, okay, yeah, let's give him the downtime. Let's just make sure he's doing the same thing. This is him stuck in the middle of that. And that sucks for us to watch because it's just like it's not fun to be like, oh yeah, Hydra's got that whole code thing that they're gonna run through with him again, and he's just
Yeah.
gonna have to fight that. It's not a fun episode the way um uh
The first
Red
one.
Guardian is having. No, in the sense where Red
Oh, I
Guardian's
see
having a
what you're
lot
saying.
of
Yeah,
fun,
I see what you're
and then
saying.
everything else is super, super serious. I'm like, it's a complete mismatch of
I would
vibes.
definitely agree with that. The energy Red Guardian brings to this episode doesn't match the actual story they want to tell.
Yeah, it's I get what they're trying to do with like a goofy buddy cop kind of journey
Mhm.
adventure, but I don't think it's as successful because it's just like, yeah, he can't read the room, and that really is rough. But it is
Uh,
what it is.
the next one is, what if Howard the Duck got hitched? So this is a continuation from the second season when
Yep.
they show you again. He says he's going to go on a date with
Darcy.
Darcy. That's what I kept wanting to call her. Kat
Darcy
Dennings. I'm like,
Lewis.
just call her the character name.
I would have called her Kat Dennings too if I was
Yeah,
struggling on it.
So it worked out. They got pregnant. They have Birdie, and everyone wants that egg. It's nice to have Samuel Jackson actually back as Nick Fury.
Yep.
Bro Loki is back, who is great.
Yep.
I wish, because I really liked in season 2 when you saw the, like, even though they weren't brothers, Thor and Loki still had a relationship.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah.
I would like to see that again. But
I
that's obviously
agree.
not the point of this this episode. But it was just
Yeah.
like, he's back. Maybe Thor. Nope. Yeah, because I guess Loki's trying to like start this tourism thing, and it all gets messed up Jurassic Park style when Howard the Duck and Darcy bring their egg, and everyone tries to converge on it to
Yep.
get it.
Everyone's trying to steal it.
And Samuel Jackson, Nick Fury has to learn, you know what? Maybe they do know what they're doing with the egg. Maybe I should leave them alone.
Yep.
It's
It's
another
just
one where I saw people being like, "This is disgusting. This is what they choose to do." I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't this be what they choose? This seems like the most, and this has nothing to do with whether or how much I liked it. This felt the most embracing of what if.
Yes,
like,
I agree
this
with
is
that.
the kind of story you would tell.
Yeah, and for those people, please don't actually watch the Howard the Duck movie that came out in the 80s.
He has sex in that.
He has full-on sex with a real human person in that. So if you think what they did here was like, oh, that's gross, I'm like, no, this is really tame. They were like, oh yeah, we gotta like move farther away from that as possible. Let's give some version
really.
of the
It's still
Immaculate
reminding them that
Conception.
they had sex.
Yes, but it's just like, oh, it was more of an immaculate kind of thing in this one as opposed to anything else. At least the way
Fair
I'm
enough.
remembering it,
Fair
which
enough.
could be wrong. What I thought was weird about this, and I could be wrong, but I'm looking at the cast list of this episode. I'm just like, it was weird that they didn't have the Collector in this.
He is in it. It's just
If
that's
he
what I'm
is?
saying. They use
Oh,
Matthew
damn it,
Friend
okay.
instead of.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
Or wait, no, the Collector.
No,
You were
that's
saying the
the
Collector,
Grandmaster.
not the
is,
Grandmaster. Got
yeah.
it.
The Collector, what's his face? Guillermo, no, not
Benicio
Guillermo.
del Toro?
Benicio del Toro.
Why would he be in this?
Because he
Isn't he?
wants to collect things.
Yeah, but I thought he died. Like even in What If, I thought he died.
Oh yeah, because
He became
yeah.
like the ultimate power thing, and then they killed him.
Yeah. See, this is one of those things where I'm like, okay, maybe they could have continued to do like, what if he was alive in this? Because I was like, this is straight up the Collector's alley.
Yeah,
Straight
but
up the
there's so
Collector's
many
alley.
people in there. Also, they're pretty bold to put Chris Hemsworth as Thor by using footage from the like first episode or second season. They're very bold. I think it's like one word.
I think that has to be a contractual obligation.
It is, but it's just like, all right, like you really set me up there because I was like, yeah, like when are they gonna embrace the Thor Loki stuff?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he only had a throwaway line, and that was not even recorded specifically for this episode, but it is what it is. Yeah, this is definitely embracing it for sure, and they're trying to have fun with it. I just feel like it wasn't as fun as it could have been. For some reason,
I'll agree with you. I'm trying not to spoil my rating, but yeah, I agree with you. I was just like, yeah, okay. I'm glad that they're doing actual what if stuff.
Yeah.
It's probably in the top 2 of things that approach being fun.
Yeah, it's true. The next episode, though, is what if the emergence destroyed the Earth? This was a little more interesting. However,
this is the Riri Williams one, right?
Yes, this is the Riri
emissary
Williams.
Earlier. It's definitely the emergence.
Emergence, yeah.
So this one, this is Riri Williams, and this is the one that really doubles down on everything being so dour because it's just straight up the Watcher being like, nah, she's just gonna die. She dies every time. Even at the end of the episode where she doesn't die, he's like, she's gonna die. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's the point? She's just gonna die.
Yeah, it's brutal, and this is one of the biggest issues with like the whole idea of the Watcher or the emergence. I mean, the tribe or whatever it is they're called, is the idea of like, yeah, what is the point of you just watching everything? Like, why?
I feel like they touch on it in the last episode
They
or the
do,
seventh,
but I don't think they do a
I was
good
so
job.
tuned out by then that I don't have a smart answer for it.
I didn't think the answer that they gave was good, and that's why I'm like, yeah, see, this is why I'm on Uatu's side. Is
Yeah,
like,
well,
why
that's
are
that's
you
by
just
design.
watching?
Yeah, that's by design. You're not supposed to be on their side, but like,
right.
Yeah. So basically, it comes down to Riri Williams needing to save the world every time, and she never does. Also, they use Mysterio, so the visuals are cool, but don't even bother with even like a Jake Gyllenhaal sound alike. It's just a completely different character, basically.
Yep.
Even though it's clearly Quentin Beck Mysterio.
Yes.
They even say he finally took over Stark Enterprises, which was kind of his whole thing in the movie he showed up in. Yep. And I guess it makes sense they can't get Jake Gyllenhaal because they can't use Tom Holland in these either. But like, at least make him sound a little bit like him. This just felt like this could be anybody. This is nothing. And he's got the White Vision going around doing his bidding.
Yeah.
I like the look of this episode.
Yes.
I was pretty drained by how, like, again, dour it felt. Like, just how seriously they took the whole, she's just doomed. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But she works with the Alliance or something. I don't remember what they're called. But
yep,
that's
the Alliance.
Wong.
Okoye, Valkyrie, and Ying Nan.
Is that supposed to be Okoye? I mean, it has to be, right? Like, I just felt like they didn't even try with her voice on that.
Yeah, this episode was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, like when they did Shuri, whatever season that was, I think it was season 1. I'm like, it sounds nothing like Shuri.
Yeah,
definitely didn't really sound like Nakia in the first episode, and this
didn't sound like Wong in this episode either.
Well, yeah, I mean,
David
that was
Chen to do it.
Yeah, immediately I was like, so not Benedict Wong. Okay, this really feels like we should have used someone else. Like, as in just another character, because like just bring Shang-Chi back or something. Like, you obviously had access to Simu Liu.
Yeah.
He's in 2 episodes, right? Like, just
is he in 2?
Yeah, he's in the first one and he's in the Western.
Right. The mecha thing. Yeah, that makes sense. I keep forgetting about that because all I think about that mecha episode is just Sam Wilson and Bruce Banner stuff. That's it.
I have a lot to say about that when we're ranking the Bruce and the Sam stuff. I regret skipping over it, but we'll get back to it when we do our ranking.
Sure.
Yeah, so she just works with the Alliance, and they give her the confidence she needs to save the day this time, and she becomes a version of Vision in this.
Yeah. Which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, really cool. But then the actual story of what's happening there is overshadowed by the actual fact that I'm like, oh, okay, we got to watch the Watcher interfere, and then the rest of the Watchers be like, oh, well, we have to do something about this. He's disturbing the peace.
They didn't say anything until 2 episodes later. We're like, wait, he did it again? Let's get him.
It's so weird to me. It's just like, and we'll get into this for the episode that they actually tell him, like, this is what you've done. But it's the idea of like, yeah, at what point do they... I guess because they're Watchers, they're just like, they have to watch him consistently interfere until they're like, oh yeah, I guess we can't be Watchers anymore. We got to do
also,
something.
In this, it starts with Emily Van Camp as Sharon Carter again. I'm like, that didn't even sound like her, and that was her. Like, for some reason, just didn't. For some reason, I was like, this clearly visually is Sharon Carter, but this doesn't sound like her. And then I looked at it, I'm like, it is the actress who plays Sharon Carter all the time. They're really committed to her being a bad guy. I wonder who she pissed off at Marvel, where they're like, no, even in What If, you're the bad guy.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair, but I just don't think she's a good power broker in this. Oh, or like the other thing
she
too.
Is what she is. I don't know. I don't know what the power broker is to know if it's good or bad.
I know
interpretation of it. It's just she tricked Riri, I guess.
Yep. Fair enough.
Yeah,
go get him attitude.
Not a great use of Valkyrie either, because I just feel like you actually got Tessa Thompson, maybe have her do some stuff. But whatever. At least it looked cool for the beginning part. I really liked
Yeah.
Riri's escape.
Yeah,
I thought
it
that was
did
cool.
look cool. There was good ideas in this, but it gets overshadowed by the Watcher stuff, I think.
Well, yeah,
Because then
certainly by the end where they're like, it's just about the Watcher. It doesn't matter and how sad he is.
yeah, because then that's the only time you're like, oh, okay, this is actually they're telling, okay, th
Yeah,
here's
they're
what they're
hinting
doing,
at
kind of thing.
something now. Not
Yeah.
hinting at, like, it's picking up threads from all the seasons in terms of his willingness to intervene.
Hmm.
But you're also kind of like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Or sorry, I am. I shouldn't speak for you. I didn't care. All right. What if 1872? Good pairing. I think other than the ending, I was like, yeah, this was fun. I had a good time with this one.
Hmm.
I liked the mix of like gunslinging and martial arts.
Yeah.
Uh, I like that it was really like, yeah, I wouldn't think to put these two characters together. They're together. Like, there's even Iron Fist in it, a young Iron Fist. So that
Yep.
it's everything I want out of a What If episode. I think my only problem was like Kate Bishop just flat out kills his sister, and I understood where they were going before they went there, but I was just
Yeah.
like, nah, you should probably be mad at her for a little bit longer. I was like, I know that this is just gonna be him being like, "Don't worry, she was dead before." Like word for word, what he said, I already had
Hmm.
played out in my head, and I understand how narratively it made sense. But I was like, nah, he deserves to be angry for a little bit. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you left other people alive and you killed her.
Yeah.
I get that
Yeah.
she was like, I have to help my friend, but I was just like, you could be a little bit angrier.
Yeah. This is one of those episodes that I'm like, I'm a little bit more conflicted about because I'm like, okay, I see what they did here, but they're also grounding this in too much reality with like the Asian immigration trade,
Mm.
and all that kind of stuff in like actual like 1872 and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, oh, you're riding the line too much with reality, and then you're playing around with the what if side of things. It's just like, is that a good choice? And then the idea, I'm like, oh, you're gonna have to fight your sister again. That's the only logical conclusion to this.
Hmm.
And when it actually happened, I'm like, poor Shang-Chi. Poor Shang-Chi.
Yeah, I mean, we
Visually,
also got
though,
Sonny Birch back,
we
so
did.
there's that,
And
like,
John Walker,
they did get what's his face, Walton
Walton
Goggins.
Goggins.
Yeah,
They got Wyatt Russell for John Walker here too, which to
I'll be
me, I was
honest with
like,
you,
wait,
I had no
Wyatt
idea
Russell
until
was
you
in
just
this?
said that. Now, yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't know he was in it until you just said that.
yeah, yeah. It was
I'm
just one of
assuming he's
those.
someone they beat up.
Yeah, in the beginning, he's like
Yeah,
one of the leaders of the people that kind of thing.
oh, that
Where they
makes sense. He's a
summon
U.S. agent.
Shang-Chi.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not here to convince you otherwise. I didn't mind that they used stuff that we know actually happened and elevated it. I
Yeah.
think because they weren't actually going to use that to justify having like struggle porn.
Sure.
It was just
Yes.
like, yeah, okay, this is just it's to me it works a lot like Django, where I'm like, they still used it to justify torture porn or struggle porn, but it was like,
Mm.
but the end result is he doesn't have to have a moral victory. He could just like kill the bad guys. And
Right.
I was like, he's doing that in this as well. It's
Mhm.
kind of the reverse, but it is like he gets to do stuff and not be limited by that because we already acknowledge this isn't something that really happened. We can
Yeah.
just do a play and kind of like Watchmen, how you're like, this really did happen, but we're just doing a play on it so that you don't have to be mired down in the struggle of it all.
Yes, yes. And then there's also the other thing where the Kwai Jun Fan character is like, oh yeah, like there's the nod of him being Iron Fist, and people being like, oh, finally we have an Asian Iron Fist. I'm like, do we though? In a what if episode? I think that's the
Well, he's
point of.
also in Marvel Rival, not that character, but there's an Asian Iron Fist in Marvel Rival, so I just took that as
Yes.
them being like, we're planting our flag here. Like when you see him, it's probably going to be an Asian. Actually, I heard it's going to be probably female, but you're going to get an Asian Iron Fist. And
Really?
we are
Oh,
just
man.
establishing that there have been Iron Fists who are Asian. I
Yeah.
think that's what they're doing. Kind of like how they didn't really pay it off, but they were like, there's an evil Doctor Strange, so that when he was a villain in
Mm-hmm.
Mad whatever it is, multiverse. I even like the movie and I never remember the name. Multiverse of
Mm-hmm.
Madness. You're
Sure.
kind of like, yeah, I got it. I get it.
Yeah.
I've been primed for this. I think that's what they're doing.
I think you're right there. It's just
And
yeah.
and I feel that way even more because it's not the same character who's in Marvel Rivals. So
Mhm.
they're being like, no, like look at this line of Asian Iron Fist.
Yeah. Yep. Uh, I mean, it was great to see that like little nod to it and that little Easter egg, but I'm like, no, just give me a real, just don't bring back, commit to not bring back Danny Rand in this age of like,
Yeah,
oh, what
I'm.
kind of Netflix
I think
shows
that's
are they
the other
bringing back
thing.
thing?
Sorry, I'm talking over you. Continue.
No,
Sorry.
that's go on.
No, what I was saying is like I think that's the other good thing. Again, who I don't know what they'll ultimately do if they get
Uh-huh.
pushed by fan stuff.
Mhm.
But the fact that it wasn't like, oh, my name's Danny Rand and he's just Asian, that they're like, no, this is just a whole cloth,
Yep.
not Danny Rand, but Iron Fist, and the same thing in Marvel. I don't remember the name in Marvel Rivals, but like these are not Danny Rand. We are just
Yep.
giving you actual characters who are Asian, who are the Iron Fist.
Yep.
I like that idea, and I'm hoping that that's them, you know, giving
Mhm.
you the runway to accept when they give you the real Iron Fist. And I say that because I get the sense they're trying to like trot out the Netflix people and give them one last hurrah, the same way they did in Deadpool with the Fox characters. But
Yeah, I would agree with that.
but what I'm hoping is when they're like, now this is our version of this. You had your fun.
Yeah.
Was our version, and it's an Asian Iron Fist. You can be like, well, yeah, they've been doing this over the years.
Yeah, I think that would be after the Great Reset that is Secret Wars, and once
Yeah,
that thing is done, and then they're going to be like, all right, we get to reset the whole universe and play with all the characters that we want to in this kind of stuff, and they all get to interact, and it's like now you have Avengers alongside X-Men instead of this weird slow draw. Like at once we get to that point, sure, but that's like I'm going to say a decade away, probably. I don't know, but to me, I was definitely conflicted about it. You're right
that's
in the sense where they're probably priming the audience to be like, "Hey, we're not pulling that Danny Rand bull crap anymore."
yeah. I just don't think you need to do that. I think
I
they
would
have
be,
enough
yeah,
white characters, and there's going to be
yes,
more. And yeah, the discourse around it just is always like the cultural appropriation. You can just avoid that.
yeah. I would be
And
more interested in them if they did do Danny Rand again, making him a biracial character,
yeah,
like half
I
Asian, half
think
white. I
I
think that
think
would be
that works
super
too,
interesting.
and gives you the whole from two worlds thing.
Yeah, because I mean, like, I'm when I was in Asia, I'm fully like ethnically Chinese, but they're like, no, you're
Yeah,
not Chinese, you're
exactly.
Canadian, and I'm like, okay, well, imagine what that would look like from a biracial standpoint, where you
I
have,
think they want it to be an
yeah,
American Asia, like basically the idea that he would be coming, like what they
yeah,
did with Shang-Chi. Like
yeah,
he doesn't feel that connected because his memory is just growing up in the States and having that. I
mhm,
think they want to do that with a female Iron Fist. Again, I
yeah.
who knows if that actually comes to pass though.
I would say that I don't think I would like that if they gender swapped the character, largely because I'm like, all right, well, Asian men have the short end of the stick for quite a bit, so let's give them a little bit of attention too. But I get where Marvel is coming from in the sense where it's like, and this is probably what they're thinking because this is Disney and they're pretty evil. They're like, we can't have two Asian males. Let's go. We need
I
to
know
we need to
fans are
do
saying
something
that,
about that.
and it's like that makes no sense
I know
whatsoever.
it
Like you
makes no
can't.
sense. It pisses
Yeah,
me off because I'm
yeah.
like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? You can't have two Asian characters. That's like saying you can't have two white males on the Avengers. That's stupid.
Yeah.
It's dumb. Get out of here with that crap. That's just racism, tokenism at the we've met our quota. I'm like, no, man, get it out of here. Get that nonsense. That's why I think biracial would be really, really cool. But who
I
knows?
mean, they don't have to be biracial either. They could just
No, I
be.
mean for Danny Rand, if they were to go for the new
Well,
thing,
yeah, fair enough.
I
I
think
guess
that
for the
would be a
last name,
cool
that would
new
have to
thing.
make sense. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, I guess I was just like, they don't have to do Danny Rand. No,
No,
like any anyone who cares would just be like, oh, I guess whatever. And most recent people will be like, yeah, Danny Rand sucked. No one liked that.
Yep.
All right.
Next
Number
episode.
7 is, what if the Watcher disappeared?
Yep.
So this is the big one that I feel like they put in the trailers, because it's the three made up characters for the 3 seasons of What If put together with Thor Storm. And the trailer made it seem like, oh, they're gonna have like this big issue, and then Storm finally arrives and saves them, and then it was like, no, that's just how she entered the episode. And you're like, oh, I can see we're not gonna go anywhere as fun with this. That was the height of this episode, was her entrance, and there we go. Again, I like seeing these 3 characters together.
Yep.
I shouldn't say 3. I liked watching Storm interact with the 3 made up characters for this show, but she's not made up for the show. They're banking on us being like, oh shit, X-Men 97 was great, and now she's back. This is perfect.
Yeah.
And that worked in terms of the trailer. I remember thinking like, why would they put that in the trailer? But given how she's used, I was like, oh, that's why.
Yeah.
They got to get you excited somehow.
Yeah, and they did successfully pull that off for me anyways. Because the moment I'm like, oh, it's the original voice actress for Storm. I'm like, here we go. Like I'm into that. Because you can't screw that up. As far as I'm concerned,
great.
if you recast someone and pull like the whole Mysterio nonsense from earlier this season, I'm like, no, this is not a Storm I want. I want the original voice actress. Please and thank you. To
be fair to the original voice actress, she's not the original, but she is.
What?
No, she's not the original.
She's not?
No, they got rid of the American voice actress so that she would be Canadian, and they wouldn't have to pay her residuals on the other stuff. But she has redubbed the original episodes that the other woman did.
That's why I think it is the way it is. Okay, that's unfortunate for the original. Yeah, that sucks. But love that they got the 19.
She is the longest running voice of Storm. To be fair, like
that's fair.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that, and of course, I'm a big fan of Natasha Lyonne being Birdie.
Yeah, that's great.
I love her voice, and I think she did such a great job as Birdie. It was really, really fun.
It's so weird because I know she's in Fantastic Four as just a voice, and I'm like, they wouldn't put Birdie in there, would they? Like,
I doubt it.
I'm assuming she's gonna be like the robot, but it just feels like, oh wow, like they really made use of having Natasha Lyonne on retainer.
Yeah. I'm 100%. Yeah, I'm very, very sure it's like probably some AI or some robot or something like that.
Well, yeah, she's the robot from the cartoon when they couldn't have. When they couldn't have Johnny Storm, so there was still 4 of them, but it was Reed, the Thing, Sue, and a robot, Herbie.
Sure.
That's what
Herbie.
I'm assuming she's gonna be Herbie. Yeah. It would be not hilarious, but I would genuinely be blown away if she was just Birdie in the Fantastic Four movie. I'd be like, holy shit! All right.
Yeah, that would be funny.
Yeah, so they're back, and they're like, wait a minute, this is pieces of the Watcher's reality. We gotta go help him. And
that's what they do.
Peggy has to sacrifice herself to make it happen.
Well, yeah, we are bleeding these 2 episodes together. Which is
she comes back at the end of this other one, so I'm not giving the full thing. This is just more like this one ends on them thinking she died because Ultron comes back.
Right, she does do the whole like,
she's like, no, I don't want to lose any more friends today.
Team. Yeah.
So she goes up without them. She was like, the whole thing was they were going to try and do it together, and she's like, no, I don't want to lose any more friends. So she goes because they basically are like, the only way to beat this is if we have Infinity Ultron on our side.
Yep.
And
she recruits Infinity Ultron, which is.
But she gets left back, and he comes to tell them, and they're like, beat him up. He's like, wait a minute, hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun. You get Nebula in it. I'm always happy to see Nebula. She gets a funny joke. because they basically like call her somewhat of a Nazi. She's like, "What did you call me?" She's like, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Let's go." Yeah, and she works with Korg and Groot, which is nice. No Vin Diesel back for that.
Nope. You also have a Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers thing, voiced by Alexandra Daniels.
She's in
not Brie Larson.
I don't. Yeah, I didn't think Brie Larson.
It was a very, very small part of it.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all. I see her here, but I'm like, well, could have fooled me. Yeah, this one also has the fun of having them be able to have fun together and like playing foosball.
Yep.
And you're just like, that's cool. Just like a nice little hangout thing.
Yep.
Mileage may vary. Their whole like no using powers and then just obviously using powers. I was just like, what? Could have had a better conversation than this.
Foosball? Yeah, that was good.
Well, just the way she was like, oh, portals aren't a power, they're a gift. And I was like, oh, I mean, you're using your powers. And yeah, you're using your duck arms or using your powers, basically.
Yeah, stop moving the goalpost there, bud. It was really funny.
Yeah, I think that was fun to see them be a fully formed team and just be able to hang out and have fun.
Yeah.
And
but you're right entirely about the whole sidelining of Kahori in this. Yeah. I'm like, oh man, give me more Kahori. Yeah. Like, she's great.
Do you have a problem with Captain Carter? Because all I see, even from people that I generally respect online, they're like, oh, another Captain Carter. I'm like, I don't understand what the hate is.
I think the hate that they have is that this is a female team led by.
They just don't like Captain Carter.
Really? Why?
Like, people have been saying it since season 2. Like, why the fuck did they bring her back? I hate it.
Oh God!
Why are they so obsessed with Captain Carter? I'm like, I don't. What?
I don't have
obviously the
issue
Steve. Like, she's the Steve stand-in here.
Yeah.
Like, were you mad when you saw Steve Rogers all the time? Like, this is the parallel they're doing. That was the first what if she became Captain America instead of Steve Rogers.
Yeah, so, and I that's why I reduce it down to the whole misogynistic angle. I'm like, I just think they don't want to see a woman do this job.
Yeah, I guess so, but it's just weird. Like, if anything, she's the mascot for the show. Like, where else would you expect to see, like, if not here, like, where else would they put her? And I know she was in Multiverse of Madness, but they killed her off like immediately. Yeah. So it just doesn't make sense to me that people would be like, oh, not again. I'm like, this is the show's first original creation, and it's not even that original. Like, it's pretty much like a Thor Storm thing, but like, she is technically an original creation for the show.
But not only that, I think we remember back in like season 1 or 2 where Uatu recruited her to be a part of this, doing this kind of thing. Yeah, right.
She's his.
So it's just like, why would she not be a part? Like, it seems so silly to me. I'm like, y'all have to really, really recognize that Peggy and Sam really are twin flames in that regard, that they have that same desire, that same push. They're just using different tools. And the fact of the what if, like the first episode of like, what if Peggy Carter got the serum, was great in the sense where I'm like, yeah, they're going to use what they can use and fight alongside together. That's the whole point. So I don't get why people are upset unless it's just like, oh yeah, you're misogynistic and you just don't want to see women like saving the multiverse and all that. Because that's what it reduces down to at the end of the day to me. They're not complaining about anyone else, but I think that's the through line of what they're actually saying. I don't think there's anything annoying about her. I'm like, you're just seeing Steve Rogers as a woman. That's it.
I don't find her to be annoying at all. I mean, granted, I like Haley Atwell as an actor, and I really like the Peggy Carter character. Like, I'm a big fan of Peggy Carter when she's not even Captain Carter. So yeah, that is my bias. But I really, nothing about the character makes me like. I always imagine, there's gonna be misogynists that just don't like women, but even to see like some people who I won't name, like, not that we know them personally, but just online, that I would normally be like, oh yeah, they understand like what it's like to be a marginalized person in these spaces, and probably not great to like punch down on them, being like, oh, not again, they did another Captain Carter. I'm like, what? Really? You too? Oh, all
Yeah.
right. Like, and so I was like, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's something just glaringly obvious I'm not seeing because of my bias. But
I
it
don't
just
think
feels like, oh, you
so.
just don't like that it's a female led thing.
I genuinely think that's the case. I think it's just one of those double standard things where it's like, oh, okay, if you have a boss in real life that's like really, you know, hardcore and strict and all that kind of stuff, you're like, oh, he's a good boss. Versus if it as a man, but if it was a woman, it's like, oh, she's a bitch. I'm like, no, what are you doing there? Like, what are you? Come on, man. Like, it's
Yeah.
stupid. I really hate that a lot.
Yeah, it's just weird because she is doing a lot of the stuff that Steve does, which is like
Yeah.
sacrificing herself and just trying to do the right thing. So it's not even like they're like, oh, look at this bitch,
Mhm.
like being mean to this person. It's just like I don't get what is so easy to hate about this character.
I think they probably hated it just because the moment they saw it, they were like, "Oh, she's gonna have to save the whole thing, and it's gonna bank down on her," which they were right. But I'm like, well, again, that's to me, if Steve Rogers did it, y'all be would just like
Yeah,
like
he didn't even
applauding.
get to do that in Endgame.
Yeah,
It was
is
Tony.
Tony. And the idea here is just like, okay, well, just stop. Like this is a well-written character. She's not ever too much, in my opinion. She has a lot of fun, and again, mirror image of Steve Rogers' character. So I'm like, I don't get why people are upset, aside from the fact that I'm like, oh, you're probably misogynistic.
Yeah,
And like, I would hate to be wrong about that. I don't want to assume that they're misogynistic, but I haven't seen a well articulated point as to why it's actually bad.
I feel like especially since, and I don't know how much they would have changed between now and season two, given that they
Mm-hmm.
were giving us previews of this season at the
Yeah,
end of season two.
yeah.
So that feels like things were pretty much locked in. But like, I would imagine she got a lot of play in season two. I liked
Mm-hmm.
that stuff
Mm-hmm.
overall. She's only in the last two episodes of this season. Like,
Yeah.
it just feels like such a weird complaint.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, anyway, the last one is what if, what if.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't remember what happens. I was fully checked out when I was watching it. It just seemed
Well,
like a really big fight.
yeah, this episode, a lot happens in the sense where it shows you how Uatu was recruited,
Mm-hmm.
what they stand for. They're exploring the philosophy of like that and all that kind of stuff. And again, this is where I was like, hey, yeah, I don't understand what the Watcher's full point is. They don't make a good argument towards it, and of course that's why I like Uatu because he's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, this is exactly why you got me to be a Watcher because I see something that you don't. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, I'm very gladly clear that there was like race interwoven in that the idea of
Mm-hmm.
like Uatu's the only black watcher versus everyone else was white. The idea of like, oh, I'm actually going to interfere. What are we going to do with this information that we just watch and watch and watch and watch? Like that can't be it. We have to actually do something at some point. I'm a big fan of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of that. And then I love that they call him like the double standard of being like you you know the watchers being like you're not a watcher anymore, like you're no longer just watching, and then he goes like neither are you by like putting
Yeah,
me
by
in this kind of
intervening with him.
situation. Yeah, so it's just like yeah, you see my point, you just disagree with what I'm doing, and you know they want things to stay the way it is, and then one person's advocating for change, and we know how that plays out usually.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly here, because it ends up in a great fight, like you said, and then they really do get to just kind of have this philosophical discussion toward the end, where it's like, I don't understand, and he's like, let me show you. And I like the fact that they bring it back to Doctor Strange again because I thought he was such a memorable part of the What If kind of series.
Yeah, even though I
That they
didn't
bring him
like it,
back.
they
Yeah.
brought him because that was their example, right? Like you allowed this guy to do this shit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, he, he- I like that they brought him back, but in a way that was just like, yeah, he's not actually on screen.
Uh,
He's just like
Yeah, he's
a
just brought it
cluster
back.
of stars. He's a part of this universe,
Uh,
and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, interesting, cool.
and
That kind of
not
works out
including
well.
the Watcher. I mean, I think he goes through too, but the four heroes get
Mhm.
Watcher powers, right?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
I love what Storm says in that moment. where Birdie's like, I don't know what this is gonna do to us, and then Storm is like, hey, yeah, well, we know what's gonna happen when we get annihilated. Let's just do this and then
Yeah.
worry about it later. I'm like, this is why I love Storm as a
Storm is
character. I'm
great.
like, this is the most logical thing ever. It's like we know what's gonna happen if we don't get him, and now we're Watcher level beings, and I'm like, that's sick. That's so cool.
Yep. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, those are the 8 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let me see if I remember. Okay, yeah, here we go. I don't know if I still agree with my ranking here.
Yeah, I don't think I do too, but I'm
We'll
gonna
go from 8 to we'll
bottom to the top.
Yeah, bottom to the top.
Okay. I'll go first for my number 8. So
Yep.
What if the Red Guardians stop the Winter Soldier? That's my least favorite for all the reasons we discussed.
Yeah, we're gonna just agree on that. I think
Okay.
that was my least favorite.
Yep. My 7th was what if the Emergence destroyed the Earth? Very much like you, I'm like, this is too bleak. I don't like the fact that I'm like in every story, Riri's gonna die, and Riri's the whole hope.
Mm-hmm.
It's I like the fact he interfered, but at the end of the day, I'm like, no, don't do that.
I think for me, because I was so checked out, my 7 is what if.
Sure.
You make it sound great, if I'm being honest. But
yeah,
even when I was like, I gotta rewatch these, I was like, I'm not rewatching that. I don't
Ain't nobody got time for that. I think, yeah. I think you'll be surprised where my what if is. But I completely get what you're saying because there's a lot there.
But yeah, I wish I liked it as much as you because it sounds great. But I will be honest, I didn't give it a fair shot. This is not me saying I don't see what you see. It's me being like, I didn't even give it a chance.
Right. My number 6 is what if Howard the Duck got hitched?
Okay. Yeah. That's my number 6 would be what if the Emergence destroyed the Earth. I can't get over how much I still liked seeing Riri and working through it, and she had a energy, but yeah, ultimately it doesn't crack the top 4 because it was just like it's still like him being like, she's just gonna die. I don't give a fuck about this shit. I know he tells her what to do, or gives her the confidence, but it is him still telling the audience, nah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay, your number 5?
My number 5 is what if 1872?
Yeah, that makes sense. Mine is what if Howard the Duck got hitched?
Nice.
I was like, at least they're doing a what if thing. It just felt not as cohesive as it could have been. Yeah,
I hear you. Not my number 4 is what if Agatha went to Hollywood?
Me too, baby.
Yeah, this episode was a lot of fun. I love Catherine Hahn in all iterations of her, and seeing her interact with Kingo in this context was so much fun. Like the idea, like those dance sequences with King, so much fun to watch.
It was good. It was a good time.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
What about your number 3?
What if the Watcher disappeared?
Me too. Yep.
Nice. It was good. Get to see the team work together. Clearly we're not misogynistic to the degree where people hate Peggy Carter. I love seeing Peggy Carter.
Yeah, I like there. I read that Marvel history book.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, they're not gonna do it in the movies, so they might as well get their female-led stuff here.
Yeah, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean that could change, but
I hope
I was surprised reading like just the conversations that were had and how many times Kevin Feige had to be like, "I'm quitting then. I'm gonna leave then if you don't." Like the fact that he had to fight to have Scarlett Johansson, I almost got it wrong, to have Black Widow in the Avengers lineup is ridiculous, and the fact
that is ridiculous.
That they were like, well, then we're not putting her on the merchandise. We're not going to let anyone know there's women in this team. And they were like, and black characters are a non-starter.
Insane. Absolutely insane world. Number 2.
Number 2.
Mine is what if.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like We had
I
to
really,
go different paths at some point.
yeah, I really like this episode. Not number one,
Yeah.
but I really enjoyed this episode for sure.
Well, obviously we have the same number one because my number two is What If 1872.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really liked seeing those two characters interact. I thought that was
Mhm.
fun. And
It was a good mashup of characters. That was a combo I did not
like,
expect
no.
to be good.
And the one thing holding me back was like, I wish Shang-Chi was allowed the opportunity to be a bit more angry about having his friend kill his sister.
Yeah. Yeah. It he moved on from that really too quickly, in my opinion. But
Yeah. So I guess our number one is What If the Hulk fought the Mech Avengers?
yeah, baby.
Which I feel like people were like, "What a boring episode," but I was like,
Nope.
I liked it a lot, and
Yeah.
as you said, it's a great tone setter. And the thing I forgot to say was that it was another instance of Disney Plus doubling down on knowing what makes Sam a different Captain America than Steve. And I don't mean better, but actually distinguishing him to the point where everyone's looking at him while he's trying to talk to Bruce. And it's not a joke about like, and again, I liked the joke in Thor Ragnarok. It's not a joke where he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna do the sundown thing, or the sun's getting low thing." He was just like, "No, I'm gonna talk to my friend because I talk to people. That's my thing. I can talk to people. We can work things out."
Yeah,
and I thought that was a very strong thing, especially because they weren't using him in any other season of What If. So it was nice that when he did show up, he showed up properly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really respected that there was a genuine friendship there, and that's what he leaned on at the end, instead of like, "Oh, I know this one thing that'll kill him," or like this. I remember he told me this one weakness. It was like, I'm just gonna talk to my friend.
Yeah,
and I really like that, and I know Steve has done that with Bucky.
Yeah,
but this feels a lot less reckless. That feels like Steve is like, "No, I just love Bucky." Like,
yes,
I would let him kill me. Sam didn't go into that being like, "I'm going to let him kill me." Sam went into that, I can talk to my friend.
Yeah, this is it. I'm glad that you said that because yeah, Steve is definitely going in thinking that everything's going to work out in his favor. Obviously, I think there's a lot of racial tones built into that, and then Sam being like, "Okay, the best way to approach this is with a conversation with my friend." And spoiler alert, I think I'm fairly confident calling this now, but like I think the new Captain America movie is going to boil down to him talking with the leader and like connecting with him at the end and getting the leader to pull the bungee cord on whatever his grand plan is going to be. So I think it's going to come down to a conversation again, and I think that's his greatest strength as Captain America, and that is the important thing. It's not about like, oh, who's got the super soldier? Who
Strong
cares?
enough for anything. He's got he is strong enough. Obviously, he's just also got thoughtfulness on his side as well.
Yep.
And I'm sure it's not going to happen, but I'm still holding out hope that Bucky makes a surprise appearance. Watching them at the Golden Globes really made me be like, "Oh yeah, I want to see them together again."
I think they're going to be, because
they've done a good job of being like, he's not in it, he's in Thunderbolts. We're doing a different thing. But there is one scene in the trailer where Sam is talking to someone you can't see, and he's like, it just doesn't seem right. And I'm hoping, even if it's just that one scene, that he's saying that to Bucky as they have to go their separate ways.
Yeah. I kind of like how Foggy pulled the whole like, oh yeah, that's actually Peter Parker in the Iron Man mask. Like,
no, I don't want it to be like that. I want it to see them together, and I want to know they filmed the scene together.
Right. I know they could say that, but I don't think that there's because apparently he's supposed to be a senator in like freaking Thunderbolts, right? And I'm just like, well, you have a president here. It's gonna be pretty hard to not have that be a part of this thing, right? Even if they were
senators
mentioned,
hang out with the president wherever he goes, but yeah.
Well, fair enough. But like, it's just one of those things where I'm like, no, it's too much overlap with the political side of things, with how they're writing Bucky's character in the future. That I'm like, well,
I hope he's in there. I like their energy together.
Yeah.
But who knows? Either way, I thought that this was not a great season.
No.
I was trying to be as positive as possible while talking about it, but
Sure.
as you can see, I didn't even give the finale the time of day. So like, I really, I was worn out by this season, and I am looking forward to something better moving forward. As you mentioned, there's the Spider-Man show. I guess you didn't mention that on mic, but the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man show is coming at the end of this month.
Daredevil's coming.
If we're doing that week to week. We're definitely not going to do Daredevil week to week. Well, maybe
that's
going
to be too long.
Maybe we'll do like, I don't know. We might do that in chunks. But same with Spider-Man. Maybe we'll do it in chunks. But yeah, I'm glad they got this out of their system. It didn't feel like they wanted to be doing it anymore. So
it just felt
onwards and upwards.
This season just felt creatively restrained more than any other season, because it felt like they were just, all right, we got to wrap this up. We get like, again, really
weird because they were
3
clearly
episodes
done when they were airing season 2. So it's not. It doesn't feel like, oh, like in the intervening months we realized people don't like this shit. It was just like it seems like they were just like always like, yeah, this is it, we're done.
Yeah, which I can respect and all that kind of stuff, but it's just like I would have expected the final season to go all out, but really we have one through storyline to get to, and then everything else is filler until then.
Especially since the first season ended with them being like, now let's put together a team based on what you've seen already. This was like, no, these are just some people. Again, you've seen them before, but it wasn't like, I don't know. It's fine. It's over. I feel like we spoke about it properly. I don't think I was being dismissive at all. You definitely weren't. You found the good in What If.
Yep.
Made me want to rewatch it. So that is a bonus. That's a plus.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you very much for listening, everybody. You can find us on Instagram, Threads, and probably
YouTube.
That's it. Yeah, and YouTube. That's right. At TDF Spoiled on those 3 things. And we have an email, spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. And our website is tdfeverything.com/spoiledrottens, where you can find all the episodes of this show and the places where you can contact us. And we are also on all the podcast platforms that people normally use. So don't be afraid to rate, review, subscribe, follow, and share with your friends that way. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.